Hello, welcome to another video on the Scouring Early Access. Today's match is going to be a 2 versus 5 match with me, the Birthday Gamer, and my ally, Dingy Code. On our enemy team is going to be Harry Butterglove, Steve Sammy 6, Nosa, Ali Jubel, and Hans Hattrick. And over here, I spawn as the blue orc player. And I'm pretty much going to be doing the warrior start build order, or just making a lot of warriors. And next to me, my red orc ally, Dingy Code. Looks like he's doing the goblin archer build. And over here, the first enemy, orange orc, Steve Shemmy 6. Looks like he's making farms first, then a logging camp, and then a barracks. So I guess he prioritized making some food so he doesn't starve, which is a good idea. And this pretty much looks like it's gonna be potentially archer build order. And over here, the white player playing as human, Ali Jubel. Looks like he's probably gonna be doing archer build order, because a lot of this wood chopping going on here. Over here, the purple human player, Harry Butterglove. Looks like he's going to be making a good amount of swordsmen. And over here, the black orc player, Nosa. Looks like he's going for a warrior build as well. But of course, slow logging camp so he can get some wood later in the game. And the final enemy, yellow human, Hans Hattrick. He's playing as humans, and it does look like he's doing a swordsman build order with a good handful of swordsmen. But it does look like he's going to be switching out to, I guess, incorporate archers into his army. Anyways, over here I started trying to kill some wolves to level my army a little bit. But of course my farms were a little later compared to all the other players. But eventually I do get it back on track. And I do somehow get more units out. Maybe one or two more warriors than anyone else, because I just use all my workers to make my barracks right away. Which can of course give a small advantage, because you're gonna be allowed to clear the camps a little sooner than anyone else, which of course can allow you to clear more specific camps a little faster. So you can see here, some enemies are just hanging around, some are trying to kill some wolves. Looks like Bike Pirate is doing really well. Started clearing. Yellow player is more of a newer player, so he didn't kill his wolves entirely, unlike the Bike player, who knows that wolves can respawn. Over here I started making a forge, because I was thinking of potentially doing the shielded warrior with cannon artillery build to try and fight the enemies, because it's going to be the most effective, having a big meaty front line of warriors with a lot of cannons behind them bombarding big armies of enemies. Just capturing this outpost, and here I started making a few barricades to buy me some time in case an enemy tries to go here to try and kill me. I guess Red forgot to make a farm. It's more focused on trying to get some cannons out so he can, I guess, survive a little easier in case he gets rushed. The orange player just hanging around, but I guess maybe he forgot that he can kill some wolves here to level up his army a little bit instead of having just auto level 1 units. And here the goblins begin spawning everywhere. Of course, a few seconds later, then some waves arrive. But of course, the first wave is not a big deal. But of course, it can become a big deal when you get 2 waves coming at your base, which can be a little annoying. But orange did, I guess, clear his way with no issues. And so this wave might be purple's wave and white's wave coming out towards this direction. So sometimes goblin waves can be a little unfortunate when they spawn. Can put one player at a small disadvantage, you could say. Here the enemies are clearing their corner here, which is a good idea because this is the only entrance to this area, and so you can easily make a base and easily defend it if you just hold this choke point. Looks like Black is still doing Heart of Warriors. I guess farms. Yellow is making a lot of archers. Look at him at a swordsman. Got a tier 2. Purple got a tier 2. It's getting a smithy. So yeah, somewhat similar to yellow. Just a few archers, a few swordsmen. The white player already making a few cannons. He has a tier 2. He's gonna have a mostly ranged focused army. Orange has a good handful of warriors, a lot of archers. He made a forge, so he might be making a few cannons as well. And he has a tier 2, so he can even get a shield ability or even archer damage for his archers. Looks like over here, the red player is already trying to stir some trouble by killing the orange player's wolves here. And he's trying to bait him into his cannon fire. Here the yellow player manages to clear this corner all by himself. And of course, getting a base here is going to be very important. Which is why I already did it myself here. Because it was a important reason for me to clear this. Because it's a 2v5, and if you don't really get your second base somewhat relatively quickly, then all the other enemies are going to expand too quickly, and you're going to get overwhelmed with their huge armies. So now I'm getting a second base, and potentially my ally can get a base here as well. It's going to be a little harder to make a base in front of enemies compared to just hiding in the back corner here. Here I just start going across the map to try and see if the yellow player is preparing an attack or if there's enemies here, because I did see my red ally was attacking the orange player here. Of course, he did manage to successfully blast a few units here with his cannons. But now that the orange player has some shields, it's going to be forced to run away. And of course I saw this, so I knew that I would have to help him eventually. So I sent my units somewhat back. Or actually I was here preparing to attack the yellow player on the right. But before attacking, I wanted to get some potions for my army, so they would survive for twice as long. Which is why my army was hanging around here. And only now I see that my red ally is in big load of trouble. All these warriors who have shield ability, so all these range units are not going to be really saving him at this point. And of course there are some reinforcements from white and purple. But white did forget to use his archers, which could have helped him out a bit. And over here, my army that was meant for yellow came in useful in fighting all these units here. And I believe most of them don't have any potions, so that's why my army of warriors are kind of cutting them down somewhat easily. Because most of them have potions, which is why they're taking forever to die in comparison. So here I kind of cleared this whole army. Maybe losing 3 cannons. Maybe 4. Not that many warriors. Well, of course over here, Yo decides to attack me. But I did prepare. And I got the bill ability for my workers. So I could fight back a little bit. In case my big army's not here. Well, because of these barricades, they did buy me a little bit of time for my army to get here to save myself, pretty much. And here I'm just making a lot of cannons, because you are a very powerful unit when you are able to use artillery ability, which can basically just melt huge hordes of armies if you have a lot of cannon artillery fire. Here are just producing more workers, making a muncher cave, and so I was thinking of trying to get a tier 3 really quickly, so I could potentially get the warlock, which could be even more helpful with his death cloud ability, which basically poisons units and allows you to fight big hordes of armies a little easier. And here I was preparing to attack Yo, because I did kind of help red here, so I was expecting to have some kind of time to try and at least kill one player, or the Yo player here, before I would have to go help the red player. But of course, the red player, being the red player, decides to provoke the enemies. But I guess this does tell him that we have a huge army amassing here. But he kind of didn't really mention that, so I was more focused on attacking Yo here. I didn't know that most of the enemy armies were about to attack him on the left side. So here, red is just making a few cannons, a few archers. Fine, I'm getting a tier 3 here, and now I decide to attack the Yo player. But here, of course, you need to be careful to try and not kill your own units, because the artillery does hurt your own units as well. But here, because this was only one player here, kind of had a lot of trouble fighting my own army. Especially because we have a lot of potions, and he doesn't have that many potions. And most of his ranged advantage got kind of neutralized by my shield ability, my warriors, and my artillery fire. But of course, in the meantime, while someone killing Yo or crippling him, the black player decides to attack here. And so now the red player is going to be in a lot of trouble, because of course, like I mentioned before, when black attacked last time, he had a shield ability. Now he has it again. and so all of this range advantage is going to be cancelled out. And so red pretty much becomes a sitting chicken. And of course, with the help of artillery here, which doesn't allow him to use his workers or archers, because they're going to melt on top of these buildings like they did. So that's why he was kind of overwhelmed with 3 players. Although the white player did leave his army here, and purple didn't really help, so he could have actually killed red even faster than they already were doing here. But of course here, after crippling yellow a little bit, I managed to send my army back to try and save the red player. And of course here, funnily enough, the goblins spawn right behind these cannons, so they kind of get sandwiched in here. And of course, the goblin waits begin spawning everywhere. And so there's a perfect neutralizing script, which can somewhat make everyone busy. And so it's going to be a little difficult to try and attack someone during the night. See here, everyone's having fun with goblins, which of course allows me and my ally to somewhat get a break from their attacks. Now here, I managed to kill all the buildings from the yellow player, but I did not scout this corner, and so the yellow player actually gets to survive. But of course, after killing all of his stuff, he's gonna be a little behind, I guess, technologically. And so after all this time, we only managed to cripple 1 player, so there's still around 4 players that are able to produce a lot of units and produce a lot of higher tier units as well. Here, goblins begin attacking. This red player baited them in here, because they are just hanging around. So now I have a huge army of cannons here, a lot of artillery. I have a few munchers to try and, I guess, run down some enemies. But of course I also just now finished researching the rage ability, which can help my units do way more damage as well. Here I started making a few warlocks, and of course started researching the death cloud ability, which will come in handy very soon enough. I'm here, I guess, saw that I crippled the yellow player, and I did not really expect much of an attack from the right part of the map. So I made a base here, even is my main base right now. But I did somewhat expect to have some kind of run by, some kind of small army attacking me here, while I would be busy attacking the west part of the map. And here I send my huge army. It's all raged up. And with some artillery, I guess, combo or assistance, I'm able to just destroy these defenses very effectively. So orange pretty much loses his whole army. I lose very few units. And white doesn't have much of an army to help him, but he is kind of picking up a few units from mine. And of course, in the meantime, the black player doesn't go around and destroy this whole base, which is kind of annoying, because it would have been easier to fight him head on if he helped out orange. But of course, that is the fun part of, I guess, being outnumbered in terms of amount of players. You can always get attacked on your weaker side of your defenses or your positioning. So now we can see here, using some Death Cloud poison. Just gonna turn the health of these munchers to 1/3 of their maximum health. Just gonna allow my munchers to just destroy them here, as we saw. But of course here, the cannons and archers being super annoying, because I have to pay attention here and to my remaining army in the west. And of course, Blackbear tried to kill my cannons. Here I was a little overwhelmed. I was trying to control this army, also trying to effectively defend myself here, which was very, I guess, hectic. I was trying to get some reinforcements, get a few warlocks. But it does look like I'm getting somewhat overwhelmed with the amount of munchers here. And there's our cannons bombarding, so it is getting pretty desperate here. But eventually I do send back most of my munchers here to try and save myself, while attacking with a group of warriors to try and finish off the orange player. But the orange player is not going to be eliminated, because he did manage to migrate to the middle of the map, as we can see here. So he's still not dead. But of course, he is very crippled. It's going to be a long time before I can make any higher tier units. Then eventually, the enemy runs out of steam, or out of their army. And so we're finally cleaning them up with very few units I have left here. But that's because most of my army, which was made out of warriors, is only now running home. And even still, Black sends even more reinforcements. It's kind of funny. Fighting for so long, and there's still more units attacking. But of course, after seeing my army of warriors arrive, he does realize there's no point throwing in any more units here. So now I somewhat stabilize, but of course, I only have one mining base. It's about to run out. So I am forced to try and secure this base to have some kind of economy left. And over here you can see the Yo player, after being crippled, he's still able to make all the tier 1 units, which can be very troublesome. There's a huge amount of them, as we can see here. I was somewhat thinking of attacking the Black player to try and destroy his army, but after seeing the Yo's huge army as well, I decided to just try and hold this choke point here. And of course, on the other side of a map, the white player and the purple player were somewhat attacking the red player. And so, there's going to be somewhat dying relatively soon because of artillery, killing all of his units. So I do send an army of munchers to try and save him. But in the meantime, the black and yellow players, they decide to attack me here. But with a combo of a poison ability, managed to poison most of this army, on top of bombarding it with all these cannons. And then of course sieging my cannons. Somehow able to just destroy this huge army of black and yellow. But that's probably because these warriors managed to hold them off long enough for my cannons to do most of the work. There's some cheeky cannons, killing a few units. But now, you can see I killed most of the armies of yellow and black. And so their next attack is going to be coming a little later. But I can still see that the black player, his economy was never touched, so he is able to just produce a huge army very quickly. And over here, the goblin waves begin spawning. And so white is going to be having fun here. But he does have purple helping him out. Over here, yellow. I guess his wave is going to be attacking the black player, potentially. And over here, red player got his goblin wave. And my goblin wave was stuck here, trying to take over this outpost. But with just a few archers, holding this huge army of goblins becomes very easy and very doable, you could say. Or very effective. And over here, the yellow player is getting somewhat overwhelmed by his goblin wave. He didn't have much of an army, and he didn't really use his workers to fight back. And so Black has to go and try and save his ally here. So they somewhat cleaned this up. And over here, the red player is going to have fun with the wave of the orange player that spawned here. And then even another wave. I'm not even sure whose wave this is. Maybe purples or whites. It's attacking him again. So the red player, you got 3 different goblin waves attacking his base, which is not supposed to usually happen. You're supposed to attack 1 goblin wave per enemy or per player, but there's a little funny situation where you got 3 huge armies of goblins trying to attack him. But of course, I was here to help him out, so it wasn't a big deal because I did get a lot of gold by killing all those goblins. So sometimes, even if it can be somewhat unfair to get an extra wave of goblins, you can somewhat still benefit because you do get a lot of gold and XP, I guess. Here I tried to check what's in the middle because I did remember that the orange player wasn't really eliminated. So now I find out that the enemies are holding the middle, getting all this extra gold. And of course the orange player is still alive and ready to be a nuisance. So after all this time, all the 5 players are still alive. And so it's going to be very difficult to eliminate any players. So here, I have a base over here, and a second base. So 2 base economy, because the rest of my gold ran out. Here I was preparing a huge army of munchers, a few warlocks, a few cannons, a handful of warriors to try and break the control of the enemies from the middle, so that we don't get all this extra resources. And also, all the bases are somewhat running out, and so the remaining gold is going to be right in the middle. Here the black bear tries to fight me, but I do poison most of his munchers, so most of his army does evaporate. Even purple is here trying to fight, but I did manage to poison him as well. But after fighting black and purple. My army's kind of running thin. Now we have a handful of munchers left. And so I try to delay the enemies to try and get some reinforcements, so I can actually attack into the orange player and try to eliminate him, because that would help us to have one less player attacking me. But in the meantime, I was focused here, trying to bombard orange and kill him. I didn't even notice that yellow already killed my base here. And purple is going to be now destroying my final mining base as well. So pretty much now I have no more gold income, and the amount of wood I have somewhat very low, because I was producing a lot of munchers. It costs a lot of wood. So now I'm kind of forced to try and produce some berserkers. And I guess this is the new unit, berserker. They're somewhat, I guess, good, because they only cost gold to produce. And this is exactly my situation here. I don't have any extra wood. And so now I can produce a few berserkers as well. Here I'm being somewhat destroyed. My citadel is about to go down. Try to send in my big army, try and take care of this. But I do eventually lose my citadel, and now I'm only left with one main base, you could say. Oh, and of course, in the meantime, I basically killed basically all the army of orange, most of his workers. So he decides to surrender. Even though we saw here that I had to run back to my main base, and so I could have actually still stayed to fight. So he had a lot of forges here, some kind of base, so not exactly sure why he surrendered. Over here, the white player was just trying to be annoying. Maybe trying to provoke the red player. And of course here, instead of making another base, I tried to make a big army to try and go to the middle to destroy these mining bases. I guess here I explained the new berserker unit. Costs roughly the same amount of gold that a muncher does. The muncher costs 240 gold, but a berserker costs 220. But you can see we have very low health, which I guess makes them auto okay, but not overpowered, because we also can't level up. And so they can kind of melt very quickly too. Mostly any kind of army composition. But of course, when they're mixed in with RV units like munchers and all these other units here, it can become very useful addition. And pretty much a good reason to make orc berserkers, because they're very effective at destroying buildings. They do all the damage, and they do huge amount of damage when they're on top of a building as well. And we pretty much here can see they do critical damage sometimes, and this pretty much does about around 2 to 3 times the damage that they do. Their basic attack does 18 damage, and so their critical damage can sometimes even go up to, I guess, around 45 damage or more. which can be very effective because on top of already doing all the damage with their critical damage, they can get enraged, which allows them to do roughly 3 times the damage. So in combination with their rage and critical damage, can even do, I guess, around 100 damage or more. But of course, as we can see here, there's all the goblins here. My berserkers are somewhat cleaning them up. We can see we do get kind of destroyed even by these pesky goblins here, which is why you would kind of want to get some potions for them, because without potions we kind of die way too quickly. But overall, if you're remaking, I guess, a fresh army, an army of berserkers and an army of fresh level 1 munchers, is going to cost roughly the same. But munchers, of course, will cost a little more, but level 1 munchers will do 12 damage, and orc berserkers will do 18. So, you know, overall fight, fresh army of berserkers is going to beat a fresh army of munchers. So I guess that could be their purpose. You can just make a lot of berserkers to fight big armies of munchers or cavaliers. But of course, with a lot of artillery or a lot of archers, berserkers are gonna die very quickly. And over here, we're just running down a few units of the white player. But I was so distracted here because purple player was kind of annoying me here, trying to kill my base. So only now I tried to focus down this army. I guess over here the goblins are fighting the black player, and he is somewhat taking care of them very easily with the help of the Death Cloud ability, which turns these goblins to low health units, which allows them to clear them very easily. In the meantime, I was already on the left part of a map, so I decided to try and attack the white player here. You can see berserkers are kind of destroying the cavaliers, but of course a few of these cannons are somewhat destroying them here as well. Here you can see the berserker. He destroys buildings very quickly. He does roughly 36 damage per hit, which is roughly the same amount that 3 warriors would do when they're on top of this building. So it's like 3 warriors. So I can see they can mount the building very quickly. I'm gonna see here all the berserkers. They just destroyed this whole castle in like 5 seconds. So that's their, I guess, main purpose, being a very effective siege unit, but I guess also somewhat effective support unit when you mix them in with a lot of munchers. Here, purple decides to try and fight back, but with all of my reinforcements, I'm able to just squish his whole army. Over here, pretty much, the black player just had a handful of munchers, and there is no more gold left. All the gold was in the middle of the map, and so that's why he decides to surrender And following him, the white player only had a few workers left, which is why he decides to surrender as well. And of course, I forgot to mention that also the berserkers have a small ability. It's like a AoE ability, which does area effect damage, which I kind of forgot to use, but can also be extremely effective. It does like 20 damage. It's on a small group of units here. Like archers, they could die from 2 abilities of splash. So that's also another use for berserkers. Can be very effective when they're on top of a roof. You can just climb them up here and then use their ability to just mount armies of archers or big armies of workers that are trying to fight back. And this is pretty much the final stand of yellow player, or his final effort to try and attack. But I do eventually go back to my base to try and take care of his army. And so there you have it. Killed this whole army. Now there's just purple and yellow remnants left. Yellow has only 1 base, so we don't really have much gold left. 500 for yellow. Purple has 1500, but no base. And so I was able to just somehow beat their armies and gain control of the middle, which has a lot of gold left here. And so here I decide to do a final attack against the enemies to try and eliminate them. Yes, the red player still in the game. His army is mostly made out of warlocks. And here this is a final stand of yellow. His final base. That's what he does. Desperately trying to fight back. But there's just too many units here. So it's pretty much over for him. And here this is final army of a purple player. And so he sends them to their final battle. And I guess that's pretty much it. There's a yellow player. Surrenders. And then so does the last purple player. See the results. You can see here, I mined a good amount of gold, but you can see the enemy also had a lot of gold that we used to make a lot of units. I made a good amount as well. And here you can see I somehow managed to kill a huge amount of units by, I guess, just effectively using potions for my warrior armies in the early game and using the artillery and the death cloud abilities to turn their armies, I guess, kill their armies very easily by just softening them up, because the artillery and the death cloud allows your enemy's army to have very low health because of that area effect that they do. So that's why I was able to kill a lot of units and not lose as much as most of the enemy players. And I even managed to get a lot of kills on the goblins because I did survive a lot, and I did help my ally kill all the goblin waves as well. Anyways, if you liked the video, you can leave a like, leave a comment. If you want to see more videos on the Scouring Early Access, then you can subscribe. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.